Hello, everyone. I am Micaiah Watson. As always, it's nice to see you guys. If you're new here, this is the First Generation Triumph podcast. I'm a first generation senior. I am also your host here at ISU, currently interning at Trio Student Support Services. Special shout out to Dr. Shatoya Black, who is the director who is the director of Trio Support Services, and also shout out to the Trio Support Services staff for their assistance with executing the podcast. As you guys may or may not know, the purpose of the First Generation podcast is to elevate the voices of students' lived experiences by highlighting first generation student stories and the social and cultural capital that we bring to the spaces that we feel. This is important because we are actively changing the narrative of first generation students from a deficit, under-resourced community to a brilliant, capable, innovative, brave, strong, mighty community full of triumph. We are individuals who bring powerful asset-based capital to any and every environment that we step foot in. And the elevation of our voices is one of the most crucial elements in the process of changing that narrative. So today we are highlighting one of our very own seniors here on campus, Ashley Daniels, who is involved in a multitude of spaces here on campus involving media. So without further ado, I'll add her to our screen so that she can introduce herself and you all can meet her. Welcome, Ashley.
Again.
Hi, how are you, Ashley?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here.
Good. Tell the people about yourself. What's your grade, your major, where you're from?
Yes, so I am currently a senior. My major is journalism with a specific on television. And also I am from Bolingbrook, Joliet, Illinois area.
Okay, cool. And so, Ashley, if you don't mind, you are what's called a non-traditional student. What does that mean?
Yes. So for me, I feel like typically when you hear non-traditional, you hear someone that didn't go to college right away, which is kind of sort of correct. It is correct because I did take some time off, and it doesn't discourage me. It actually makes me happier knowing that I made the decision to continue and keep going. So that's
Mhm.
what I think of when I think of a non-traditional student.
Nice. And then you're also a first generation student as well. So you have that two kind of two factor working on your side, right? How does that work towards who you are today?
Yes, so it's definitely taught me how to beat the obstacles, and it's also taught me perseverance. I feel like one of the biggest things about being a first generation and a non-traditional student is just kind of taking the time to learn about yourself and figure out what you want to do with what you have learned about yourself. Me personally, when I did stop school, I thought just working a regular job would do, but I love knowledge and I love education and I love learning. So I was like,
Mhm.
we're going to go ahead and get back in school. So that's what I ended up doing. So,
Okay. And how was that journey getting back into school? Was it nerve wracking, hard, or like how did that journey, how did you navigate that journey getting back into school?
yes. So honestly, it was hard. Because as you know, depending on the major you go for, you want to go to the best school, you want to go to the school that has the most resources,
Hmm.
and you also want to go to the school where you know you can thrive as a person.
Hmm.
And for me, before I got here, I did go to a community college to kind of get that restart and get going again.
Hmm.
And then because I made such an impact on that campus, I thought, where else could I go to make an impact and continue my journey into journalism? And so that's when I came to Illinois State.
Nice. And how did your community play a role in that, whether it be family or friends? How did that work out for you?
Yes. So in my personal family, my mom, little brother, big brother, all of them, I was the first one to go to school. My mom just decided to start back going to school for nursing. And then, thank you. Go mom. And then my uncle and my aunt are actually music people, so in art as well. So they had already graduated way back then, but it was just me and my generation, the ones that are, in the 19 to 26-year-old spectrum,
Mhm.
where I was the only one going to college. So the impact of that was I just wanted to impact myself because I know I could have better. But
Mhm.
I also want to show my family that school is an option and it's always going to be there. And if there's something you want to do that requires school, just look into it at least, or take one class at least. Keep your mind going, so that you're not just settling, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
It does. It does. And so you mentioned how it was impactful for yourself, but also being a representation for your family as well. How have you seen that be cultivated within your family? Like, are you seeing, your family members? I know you said your mom got back into school, which is amazing. What about anybody else?
Yes. So actually my younger cousin, she is studying to like learn all the different like beautician type of things.
Mhm.
So she actually enrolled in school as well. I never thought she would. I'm so proud of
Mhm.
her. But she recently enrolled as well at Joliet Junior College. And then I have another cousin who's also into art, like my
Mhm.
aunt. So she's actually looking into trying to apply to different galleries and get her artwork out there, as well as taking an art class. So that's just a few little, specs that I threw out
Yeah.
there and that I'm watching blossom. I feel like the more I'm around my family and the more we all kind of realize our own gifts, the
Mhm.
conversations become less of what's next and what do you want to do next?
Mhm.
Where are we going next? So it makes holidays, visitings, getting together a lot more fun, but also
Mhm.
like, okay, let's plan for the next major thing going on in your life.
That's
So,
dope. And I know that you have to have some sort of pride in that because oftentimes as first generation students, we are the first to start those conversations. And so what I'm hearing you
mhm.
say is that you've been the first in your family to not only start the conversation, but also make impact on your family as well. And so congratulations to you for that, as a first generation student and non-traditional as well. So I'm very happy to hear that and excited for you and your family as well. Um, Now getting back into like the journey to getting back into school as a first generation and non-traditional student, I know we talked about the journey to getting back into school,
Mhm.
but let's dive a little bit deeper. Like, what are some of the things that you might have faced, trials, tribulation, obstacles that you triumphed out of?
Yes. So, with me being from Bolingbrook, I had went to Bolingbrook High School. I did hop a few schools, but it was mostly because of the financial spectrum, not so much grades.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that being a first generation student teaches you is where are the resources? Like,
Mm-hmm.
where do I go to get different things like that? Because they tell you to apply for financial aid, but what they don't tell you is when to apply for grants. What are scholarships? How do you apply for scholarships? Where do you go?
Mm-hmm.
If you do have loan options, now you got to consider credit because your
Yeah.
credit may impact, whether you get that loan. So the journey of that was I did go to Western. I did great at Western. But like I said, it was a financial thing. And then also at the time, my mom came down with lymphoma. So me being who I am, I was like, let me go make sure my family's okay before I just go off and do my own thing. She did heal from that within a couple of years,
Mm-hmm.
which, thank God for, of
Yeah.
course. I'm happy she's doing great. But then I tried to go to Joliet Junior College because a part of me wasn't ready to branch out yet.
Mm-hmm.
And then mental illness and things like that got in the way. So then I had to stop again.
Okay.
And then I focused on working, and I was like, okay, I literally took 2 to 3 years off, and I was like, I'm just gonna focus on working. Maybe school is not for me because every time I start it, something goes wrong and I have to stop,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I went through a lot of different situations because at the time, within my family, there was a lot of bumping heads going on, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So when that happens, it resulted in certain situations where I could no longer live in the same house. And also, it put me in a position where I went from working and having everything to losing everything.
Wow.
And also being homeless and different things like that. By the grace of God, I was taken care of by a woman
Mm-hmm.
of Zeta Phi Beta, Joliet
Mm-hmm.
chapter. Um, and what she did for me was she took me in and she said, okay, first of all, you're a Black woman. We're not going to do this to each other. We're not going to keep each other down like this. There's way too much going on in this world for someone of your age, your stature, your energy to just be homeless like this. We're not going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So she took me in, and she helped me look for a job. She helped me look into school. She helped me search for scholarships, save my money, all of that. Like every single day, she would come in from work, and like help me out with all of that every day.
Yeah.
And so she was like, "Okay, Asher, we're gonna do this in a month." I'm like, "A month? A month?" Like, so I was like, "Don't you think that's too soon?" She was like, "But
Mhm.
you gotta go."
Mhm.
So I appreciate her for that. Um, but definitely, I managed to get all of my stuff together, and I literally went to Lakeland, and that was roughly starting in 2019. So once I got there, it was in the middle of the country. There's nothing for miles. I'm talking Walmart was like 30 minutes up the road, you know. Um, and it was very interesting because I was the only like Black person of my class at the time.
Uh-huh.
So the the cultural and social understanding of that is like, okay, will I fit in here? Will I do okay? Like,
Mhm.
I don't want to fail. Like, can I communicate and things like that? So actually being there, I thrived. Like my grades starting off because it's been a while was rough. We're talking like 2.5. For
And
me, that's
that's
rough.
okay. That's not
For me,
rough.
that's
Okay, I
so
see the standard.
I'm like 3.0, 3.0, 3.0. But
Yeah, achieve.
but yes, being at Lakeland, I'm so thankful because I ended up becoming president of the broadcasting club there
Wow.
for 2 years, which is my
Mhm.
whole time that I was there. I also got nominated to join an honor society,
Uh-huh.
um, National Society of Leadership and Success.
Mhm.
And then I also had got two associates and a certificate there, one for communications and then one for broadcast communications. Thank you.
Yeah.
But and even with all of that under my belt, it just really showed me like with everything that I've been through, like there's there's always a journey for everybody,
Mhm.
and there's always a brighter side to what you're going through. Like,
Mhm.
and even if you don't start at a community college, me, I had to because I wanted to work back into it. I'm not the kind of person that likes to jump into big things.
Mhm.
I feel like big things overwhelm me sometimes.
Mhm.
So being able to build my leadership, learn my stature, understand who I am as a woman, as a Black woman at that,
Yeah.
because it's Black
Yeah.
History Month.
Black History
So,
Month.
with all of that considered, I just really wanted to give myself a chance to shine as much as I possibly can. And that's what Lakeland was able to give to me. And that's what I
Mhm.
was able to do for my community there, as well as my classmates, my teachers, all of that.
Mhm.
And I'm very thankful for that, of course.
Yeah, yeah, very good, very good. I'm very proud of you, Ashley. You touched on a multitude of things, right? And I kind of want to just hone in on some of those things. And the first thing that I want to hone in on is one of the things you talked about, which is social and cultural understanding. We at the podcast want to hone in on the capital, but you
Mm,
mentioned something that is inside of that we often overlook as well. So you said that the social and cultural understanding from where you were at the time was a little bit off. How did
mhm.
you navigate um, being at a place of misunderstanding or not understanding at a full capacity to understanding your social cultural capital in the space that you were in at the time? Does that make sense?
Yes. So how I was able to maneuver my social and cultural capital was, like I said, I had to understand who I was myself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I knew that going into a new space, I didn't want to come with the energy of, oh, I've been broken, beat, battered type of energy. Nobody wants to work with that kind of energy. Nobody wants to be around that kind of energy. So for me, I was like, okay, you know what? Socially, this is a new start for me. Like moving to a new state type of thinking. Um, and then culturally, I am considerably the only Black woman in my department,
Mm-hmm.
in my major, in my building for what I do, which is broadcasting, journalism, media.
Mm-hmm.
So coming with that energy, of course, a lot of times people are going to be curious. They're going to ask, the infamous, do you eat watermelon, chicken, all of those things. It comes up, unfortunately. Yes, it comes up.
It's not
Um,
funny. I'm laughing in agreement with you.
yes. So, one thing that I learned with having the social and cultural capital is that people are only ignorant to things that they don't understand,
Yep.
and people are only ignorant to things that they don't want to get further knowledge of.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so me learning my social and cultural capital, I had to understand, okay, in this field of work, I have to be open. In this
Mm-hmm.
field of work, I want to learn how to be open and talk to people so that I can help this person, but in return, they could help me, so on and so forth. Because, immediately that's what communications and media is all about.
Mm-hmm.
You'll never know about an opportunity if you can't communicate about the opportunities that are out there. If you're not a
Mm-hmm.
part of the associations, the groups, the organizations. So that's how it helped me socially. Culturally, I was actually able to put in like different things that my classmates at the time weren't aware of. So, in terms of who invented this or who came up with that, or what is Black History Month about, or let's throw Black History events, I was actually able to incorporate that into my radio life. So, when I was at Lakeland, and it was Black History Month around this time, I was able to get Michael Jackson on the radio instead of Bon Jovi.
Okay, now that's
You
capital.
know, I was able to get 3 6 Mafia,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
instead of, Aerosmith. So
Yeah.
it's little things like that. And then also, we did have like a lot of like random times where we would have like cookouts with each other. So I would
Mm-hmm.
cook, different kinds of foods that they weren't aware of, and they would cook foods that I wasn't aware of. And so we were able to understand each other
I
on a
need to
daily.
know. I need
Yes.
to know what kind of foods did you school them on, Ashley. I need to know. I need to know what sorts of food was on the table.
Well, I like to bake.
Mhm.
But I made like gumbos and like certain kind of pastas because with pasta there's the stuff that they have at the store and then there's like
Mhm.
the sweet pasta.
Mhm.
My auntie likes to make the sweet pasta. Okay. So I made
That's
that.
good.
It was gone. It was beautiful.
That's
Um,
good.
but I try to incorporate like different things so I can educate them about
Yeah.
like who I am, my culture, and where I'm from, instead of just being like, "Hey, don't say that," and get all offended, if that makes
Hmm.
sense.
Yeah,
So,
it makes a lot of sense, and I'm glad that you brought that to the table because, like I said, a lot of people we don't really use that kind of language when it comes to social and cultural capital. I myself, took a while for me to even start using the language and
mhm,
understanding, like we as first generation students bring things. Although I like the language that you use, it's outside of being broken, beaten, and battered. You know what I mean? And I think that that's a narrative that is in a stronghold of attachment with first generation students, and being able to navigate that space of like, this is what I bring and this is called my social and cultural capital is really big. And like listening to you speak, you did that. Whether it was food, whether it was within the music that you played or got to play on your platforms, that's big. There's someone somewhere, watching and listening and learning, whether it be a first generation student or an ally or somebody who doesn't really even know about the situations. And so that's
mhm.
really big, and I'm loving just you at this moment because you're really exuding what it means to be a first generation student, and I'm happy to have you here. um we talked about you brought up Black History. So in
Yes.
lieu, in respect to Black History, today being the first day of Black History Month, I want to ask: is there anyone that of Black descendant that you kind of look up to or follow or idolize in some way, shape, or form?
Yes. So the person that I currently idolize is actually quite a few people. But family wise, I'll start with my Uncle Ellis.
Mhm.
His name's Ellis, right? Find him on Facebook. um, he is somebody that I love greatly, not because he's just family, but my whole entire life, that man can play over four different instruments. I'm
Wow.
talking the bass clarinet, regular clarinet, saxophone, piano.
Wow.
Look, the man's crazy. Um, and my whole entire life, he's played in like four different bands across like the Joliet, Chicago area.
Mhm.
And every time I get around him and I see him grow and thrive and fall in love with his passion of music, it's like I want to be able to find that for myself, which I
Mhm.
have in journalism. And I think with his energy, it goes across like all of the family spectrum as well. Because with my cousin and my aunt also being like art people, like they like to paint big canvases
Mhm.
and like have people buy them, all kinds of stuff. And so
Mhm.
I think it's just so beautiful to have passionate people in your life because they're going to
Yeah.
help you keep going with your passions in life. Um, so I would say him as far as the family spectrum. As far as journalism, oh man, that's so hard. I definitely would like to pay my respects to Gary Burton Jr. He is a news anchor for Arkansas now. Um,
Okay.
and when I started my journalism journey, I followed him amongst a few other journalists.
Mhm.
And I always talk to him about how I'm doing. And he always gives me like helpful feedback and things like that and tells me when I'm doing something good or wrong. And so I like him because he's very fun, energetic, but he knows how to be serious when it
Mhm.
comes to certain stories.
Mhm.
So for Black History Month, I want to highlight both of them for sure.
Nice, nice. I love that you had a list of people. I think oftentimes when I ask this question, people are either stumbled or like don't know who to choose, or they're like, "Hey, I have a lot. I can't just choose one." And so that brings me to the next conversation of like, what is the importance of community when it comes to Ashley Daniels? How did your community impact you? And you mentioned a lot of people just with our short time on this live. You mentioned a certain woman of a certain sorority who helped you at a time when you were in need. Your
Yes.
uncle, and just being surrounded by passionate people. So I want to
Mhm.
know, like, how did you find those people, and like, how did they impact you personally?
Yes. So, going back to the woman that was a part of or that is a part of the sorority Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated,
Mm-hmm.
um, She actually came about when I was just looking for like a safe, positive place for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, at the time that I was bumping heads where I lived, it wasn't the most positive place. I felt like I couldn't grow. I was kind of in the mindset of, being done,
Yeah.
if you catch my drift. And so I was just looking for a place, a group of women, a group of Black women at that, um, to kind of just help me figure out what to do. And it all started with an event that this one woman had that kind of came from that organization as well.
Mm-hmm.
But it was pretty much how to build your own business, how to build your own capital type of event. She had a book signing, all of that. Just turned out all her sisters were there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, at the time of meeting them, this one woman saw me and she wanted to get to know me. So she had invited me out to like spend time with her and her sisters, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I had no interest at the time. I was very much unaware of what
Mm-hmm.
D9 and all of that is at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but being around her, she wanted to know everything that was going on, but she only let me tell her what I could. She was
Okay.
like, "You ain't got to tell me everything. Look, it's none of
Yeah.
my business.
That's
But on
important.
the real, what do you need?
Mm-hmm.
How can I help you?"
Mm-hmm.
And with what I was going through, I never had anybody say that to me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a love language because I'm always ready to help. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So,
Yeah.
um, when she said that, like, I broke down a little bit because it's like nobody ever asks me what I need. Like, I feel like I'm always fending
Yeah.
for myself. You
Yeah.
know, so when she asked me that, that's where the importance of community started for me because it was a chance to be around her, having that personal relationship, but it was also a chance to be around um, a bunch of women who, no matter if they're a mom, somebody's sister, a police officer, someone that has their own business, a psychologist, no matter what their occupation was, at the end of the day, it came back to the community and it came back to how we were helping each other.
Mm-hmm.
So the importance of community was just realizing that somewhere out there, someone needs your help. Somewhere out there, someone needs your words of your advice or encouragement or love or just a hug. You know, so with that side of things, it was important to have community because it was important for me to snap out of being negative. It was important to me to snap out of just feeling like there's nothing else for me to do with myself. Um, so I feel like for me, with that and being around those women, like I really appreciated the conversations we had and the fact that I'm young and I still have so much life to live and I still
Mm-hmm.
have so much that I could do with myself at that. And then I feel like with my uncle as well, because I've had many talks with him, because family, they love to give you the talks, all the talks.
Mm-hmm.
But with my uncle, he really used to sit me down and be like, Ashley, what do you like to do? And because I'm one of those people that I forgot what the word is, but I would say I'm a triple threat. Not with
Oh.
no threats included. But but whenever I learn one thing, I'm always stuck learning four things at the same time. And then it's like, how
Mm-hmm.
do you know how to do that? So
Mm-hmm.
um my uncle engraved that in me as well. Because growing up I did play clarinet as well.
Nice.
And I do play a little bit of piano as well. Um,
Uh-oh.
but he engraved that in me. And so
Mm-hmm.
when he engraved that in me, it was kind of like, okay, you know what? I'm a woman of many things. I'm not a woman of one thing. I'm a woman of many things. And when
Mm-hmm.
you're a woman of many things, it makes you diverse.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you variety and it gives, people that work with you something to work with. And I
Nice.
think that's very important for any job, any space, any community. That's very important because that's how you learn leadership. That's how you
Mm-hmm.
learn your strengths, your weaknesses, how to collab with other people to get things done. Like that's very important. So to me, the importance of community makes up who you are. If you don't have a community, you're not going to thrive. If you don't have people that don't support you, yes, you can get it by yourself, but there's no reason why you have 10 people behind you and nobody wants to share the
Mm-hmm.
word or promote you or do something for you.
Yeah.
There's no reason. So the importance of community is everything. Like if you have to stop and change your circles because certain things are just not working out, it's okay. And people shouldn't
Mm-hmm.
take that to heart, if it makes
Yeah.
sense. So,
Yeah, you said a lot, and I had to just take back and just listen to it because it was good stuff, good fruitful things. A lot of what I heard you say is being comfortable with asking for help and being
hmm
comfortable and being humble enough to know where you're at, so that you can allow space for that community. Right?
yeah,
Um, you said that the biggest things that one of the biggest things that was asked for you was what do you need, and at the time that was something that as a helper it was kind of foreign to you, and so you felt like, whoa,
hmm
like this is big, this is in some way a simple form, it was triggering for me because you never heard it. Is that correct?
yes,
So I want to talk about asking for help as a first year student, right? I myself sometimes have a little bit of a struggle, I
yeah,
want to say it is hard, but sometimes we do fall into that group where it's like, since I've had to deal with boom, 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 for such
hmm
a long time that I can just figure it out, which is a favorite saying
exactly.
majority of first generations love to say is I can figure it out, right? Um, how did you navigate, or how did you come to a space of being okay with allowing your community to do what they wanted to do, help you, serve you, lead you, and guide you, and what did that look like for you?
Yes. So for me, asking help as a first generation, I feel like a lot of times it's hard because you don't know who to ask, you don't know how to form the words to ask, and you just don't want to seem like the kind of person that's like, I always need something. Um, for me, asking for help meant talking to the right people.
Mhm.
So, I feel like that's the biggest thing when it comes to networking, no matter what
Mhm.
your major or how old you are, anything like that, that's very important to network. Me
Mhm.
personally, I like to build relationships. I feel like when you build relationships with people, asking for help is it's not, I wouldn't say necessarily normal, but it's like
Mhm.
that person can sense that you need help, but they're waiting for you to ask. And by
Okay.
the time you ask, it's like, I know you needed that. Let's go get it. You know what I mean? Like, let's go. So,
Mhm. Mhm.
asking for help is really about networking, relationship building, and it's about knowing the right people to trust. When you
Yeah.
know the right people to trust, asking for help won't scare you as much, and it won't put you in a position where it's like, but I'm scared to ask. Like,
Mhm.
if you have that relationship with them, if you know they have the resources, and if you know they're willing to give it to you based on the
Mhm.
relationship you had and how you've maintained it, asking for help won't be as hard as you think.
Yeah.
But it's just the idea that, like, when you're a first gen, you're so used to doing it by yourself that you don't want to ask,
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm.
And I feel like as first gen, we think we know everything. Not in like a bad way, not in a bad way, not in a bad way.
I hear you.
You know what I'm saying? Like nowadays, Google, YouTube, you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like literally just, okay, how do I learn to remove my nails? You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
but sometimes there are no answers for what we really need help for. And
Mhm.
sometimes we need that one-on-one communication of being like, hey, I'm really struggling with finding a scholarship specifically for me.
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time finding an association specifically for me as a broadcasting major and as a Black person. Like, for example, one of the professors that I love here, his name is Dr. Byron Craig.
Okay.
I told him that I was a journalism major, and obviously I'm Black because we're both, African American people.
Mhm.
And he was like, "You're not a part of NABJ or whatever." And I was like, "Huh?" I was like, "What's that?" Like, and so he was like, "The National Association of Black Journalists." I was like,
Wow. Mhm.
so it's just, it's small things like that. It's just knowing who you're talking to, having that relationship, and just not being afraid to ask if you really and truthfully don't know, because not
Yeah.
everything is searchable.
Yeah.
So that's my advice for asking for help as a first gen. But yeah.
I think that's good. Like I said, a lot of us do struggle with that, including myself. Sometimes we just get in the routine of just like I'll figure it out, and
Mhm,
oftentimes we do, but it's just like there's a component missing. That relationship, that
mhm.
trust, that vulnerability is missing, and so you don't really have the space to create that sense of community. And so I know we work in a space that is very welcoming in that, and making sure we ask for help at Trio Support Services, which we
Yes.
hold dear to our heart.
Yes, we
um,
do. Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
okay, represent. So getting more on the personal side when it comes to and things of that sort. Um, what kind of legacy would you like to leave behind?
Ooh,
Mm-hmm.
that's a good question.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I can honestly say is that I feel like as long as I'm living, I'm a legacy, period.
Ooh.
Um, I don't get what stop playing, but
Period. I
I,
am
I
the
do.
legacy.
I do. I do. Look, until the Lord take me out, I'm a legacy, period.
Okay.
But even with saying that, legacy to me means doing something that no one else can do like you. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like everybody has a legacy. You know, even though my professors are my professors, you don't know where they started. That's their
Mm-hmm.
legacy right there. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So for me, when I think of a legacy for myself, I would definitely love to be an anchor for my favorite Chicago station when I'm at home, ABC
Yeah.
7.
Okay,
Yes,
ABC 7.
yes, yes. I grew up on them. I used to
Mm-hmm.
go to all the morning shows, pin my face to the glass, all of that,
Mm-hmm.
slob on it, everything. But
Not the slob, Ashley.
I was 7 years old. We're not gonna talk about it. But no, in all seriousness, that's one of my biggest passions. That's where I would like to leave my legacy. Um, and it's only because like for me, I loved writing. Like there
Mm-hmm.
was never a day where I didn't write. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you were to visit my apartment right now, I'd have like 3 full notebooks of just any and
Nice.
everything. Because
Mm-hmm.
I love to write.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I feel like I said, my legacy would be, of course, being an anchor for that station,
Mm-hmm.
possibly having something of my own.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if I ever get the chance to own a station, create a radio station, anything like that, I would love that. Um, but in terms of community, because I do love my community and I'm very big on community, like,
Yeah.
community service is like A1. If I'm not doing it, there's something wrong with my life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the importance of community to me means being there for somebody else. I feel like if somebody can help me out of my rut, I can help somebody else out of their rut.
Yeah.
You know, so for me, that definitely looks like being able to build something that the community needs. I know where I come from, we didn't have like a lot of daycare centers or anything like that, unless it was like after school in elementary school, or, you took the kids to the library because we had a studio in the basement. A lot of, people where I come from, they love doing music, they love painting. So that's where a lot of the kids went, anyways. So in the future, I would like to incorporate something that expands on that. I feel like a lot of communities nowadays, it's easy to go out there and put canned goods in a box and ship it somewhere. But how do we get all of our kids together to make sure they're safe? How do we ensure that when parents go to work and they come back, their kid is happy just as much as they were when the parent left? How
Yeah.
do we make sure that people are eating when they're supposed to, getting checklists when they're supposed to, speaking up when they need to? Um, and most importantly, how do we give people that sense of calm when they don't feel calm or they don't know how to let people know that they're not feeling good?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like in this day, time, and age, importance of community is checking on our health,
Mm-hmm.
checking on our mental health, checking on each other, checking on our future kids, um, just constantly checking up and being able to put an imprint in your community
Mm-hmm.
wherever you go. Even if
Yeah.
it's a simple pie or
Mm-hmm.
opening up your own business, promoting somebody else's business, you
Mm-hmm.
know, um, the little things can really bring a group of people together to lower the crime, the drama, the issues that
Mm-hmm.
constantly occur from year to year. And I feel like that's the importance of community for me, is helping one another, even if you don't have anything to give,
Right.
little things
Right.
like
Yeah, and I like how you tied that back together. Your legacy being, helping the community. I think that you tied that together very nicely, because outside of you being the walking legacy, you have a mission and a passion to give back. And that's dope. I think that a lot of us with the work that we do have that sort of, mind frame and thought process. And it's big, and I'm excited to see you, do that and achieve those things and give back in your community in the ways that you choose to do, because it will be fruitful and multiply, and with the mission being sustained. So, one of the last few questions that I have for you is, what advice would you give your teenage self?
Oof.
Mm-hmm.
I give my teenage self. I think the advice I would have gave my teenage self is to stay in tune with myself. I feel like the older we get swayed by what the media tells us, the bad
Mm-hmm.
side of media tells us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we get swayed by standards.
Mm-hmm.
We get swayed by what our parents tell us to do. Um, because I know growing up for me, my mom had her ways of saying, "Hey, don't do this, don't do that." And when you're a teenager, you're just kind of like, "What?" Like, I'm gonna do what I want to do, but it meant well.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing I would tell my teenage self is to slow down,
Mm-hmm.
stay in tune with yourself, learn yourself,
Mm-hmm.
find your best self, whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever, and stay stable in that.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's so easy to get wrapped up in everything around us and the things we're involved in and our friends and relationships. We don't stop to think about ourselves and what we're trying to do right now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I would have told my teenage self for sure.
Yeah. Sure. And we always have those, once we get older, we learn some things like, I wish I would have knew back then. I wish I would have listened, but
Hmm.
that's just a part of life, You live and you
Yeah.
learn is one of my favorite sayings. And so with that advice to yourself, what advice would you give, first generation students who have similar paths as you did or have?
Yes. Um, so the advice that I'd give to first generation students similar to me is I would definitely say it's okay. And what I mean by it's okay is it's okay to feel like where you are right now is not good enough. It's okay to feel like where you are right now is kind of confusing. You don't know if you want to stay in your major. You don't know if you want to move that major. You don't know if you want to, stop school and just shoot for your dreams of being
Mm-hmm.
whatever in a whole nother state. Like, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But make sure that what you do is something that you can actually stay stable in. Make sure that
Mm-hmm.
what you do is something that could bring you in income but also make you happy.
Yeah.
One thing I can say is that even though we're in school and the work is hard and there's so many organizations we want to join,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's something in our major or Greek life, even, it's so many different factors coming at you full throttle in
Mm-hmm.
college. Um, that it's kind of like, okay, wait, I want to be a part of all of this, but what about when I'm done with college?
Yeah.
So definitely, I would say focus on who you are as a man or woman,
Mm-hmm.
focus on what you want to do. If you don't know what your passion is within your major, find that.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you find that passion, that's what's going to help you make money. That's what's
Yeah.
going to help you get far. That's what's going to help you explore different options. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the gist of what I would tell first generation students. And I will also tell them, let the relationships you make with people be long term. That could be with friends, professors, teachers. Like for me, I still talk to my teachers from Lakeland, like
Mm-hmm.
still, like, and I still even reach out to the woman that took care of me. That was a part of Zeta Phi Beta. Like I still reach out to her, because these people care about you. These people want to see you win.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody that's in your circle, nobody that's around you should want to see you lose. And
Yeah.
typically, if they do, you're gonna notice because it's gonna be subtle things. It's gonna be subtle things.
Mm-hmm.
So surround yourself with the right people. Ask for help. Find your passion because that's what's gonna make you money, and also just take the time to be okay. Go into yourself and feel like, you know what, today's not the best day, but it's okay. It's
Yeah.
just this day.
Mm-hmm.
Tomorrow is not going to be the same.
Right.
So that would be my advice for first generation students like myself.
Sounds good. Sounds good. It's very good advice. Well, Ashley, it's been very good to have you here. We are closing up. I do want to give you a chance to let the people find you. Where can they find you so they can get in tune and hear more of the advice and opportunities that you have available and the things and see you soar ultimately? Where can they find you?
Yes, so you can find me on Instagram, first last name media, which is Ashley Daniels Media, right below there.
Sweet.
So yes, I am on Instagram. You can follow me on there.
Sweet, sweet, sweet. I am going to drop you off, Ashley. It was always nice to have you. I look forward to having more fruitful conversations with you. Thank you for coming, and I really, really enjoyed this time with you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a great day as well.
Thank you. All right, guys, that's it. Of course, you know where to find the trio Triumph First Generation podcast. Go ahead and spread the word, like, share, follow us on Instagram Live or Instagram, sorry, and follow us on Facebook as well. We are on Facebook, so this is where we will be streaming live from. So you want to make sure if you follow us on Instagram to get to Facebook, turn notifications on and things of that nature. And we'll see you next time. Bye.